about to see. This was a shared PowerPoint that was all done online. So we didn't get together to do it. It was everybody that contributed to it. They did it from wherever they were. So it was all done electronically, which is pretty impressive. And each one that put the slides together will tell you a little bit about the Model Schools Conference and what they found very impressive. Every year that our staff has attended the conference, we have had different schools represented. And this year we had Garfield Early Childhood Center, Gertrude Walker, Kenneth Henderson, Garden City High School, ESC Technology, Supplemental Services, and Instruction represented there at the conference. One of the things that I wanted to tell you was that there were so many wonderful, fantastic speakers there that we listened to, that inspired us, that got us motivated and said, oh my gosh, you know, these are wonderful things. But you know what? We are doing a lot of those wonderful things here, just like you heard earlier with all those other presentations. It truly is amazing the wonderful things that Garden City is doing. And not only are we being innovators, we are also motivating our students to look beyond, look at the world, and see where they're going. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to everyone that attended. I want you to introduce yourselves and let them know where you're from, okay, and let you get started.
Okay, I am Lauren Bender, and I am from Gertrude Walker. I am the special education teacher.
I'm Amanda Johnson. I'm also Gertrude Walker, and I am 4th grade communications.
I'm Annette Wyatt, Garfield Early Childhood Center, and I'm interventionist for ESL and SPED.
I'm Andrea Baker from Garfield Early Childhood Center, the instructional coach, interventionist, and also ESL.
Go ahead.
I'm Christine Neve. I teach at Kenneth Henderson. I'm in charge of interventions.
I'm Sarah Wise. I teach at Kenneth Henderson. I teach 7th grade ELA.
I'm Kelly Butcher. I teach high school English for the Trained Health Academy.
Scott Glass. I teach chemistry at Garden City High School. I'm also a science department head.
Matt Byer. I'm the associate principal at Kenneth Henderson Middle School.
Sarah here. I teach elk.
Yeah.
Elk. Preschool.
I'm Josh Kyman. I'm the principal at Garfield.
I'm Phil Cadell. I'm the principal at Gertrude Walker.
Roger Singh, principal at the high school.
Okay, so at the conference we had some, like I said, we had some wonderful speakers. Two of the key ones was Temple Grandin, PhD. She is a prominent author and a speaker on both autism and animal behavior. The other speaker that we had was Daniel Pink, who has written a lot of books. His latest one that's going to be coming out in January is When, The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing. One of the things that I really associated with, or maybe truly inspired me, was Dr. Temple Grandin. One of the things that just impressed me was the fact that when she talked about how she grew up and how, you know, she didn't even speak when she was 5 years old, and how doctors wanted to put her in an institution, and her parents refused to do that and instead sent her to school. And it was because of her parents and her teachers that believed in her that she went on to do some wonderful things. One of those things was to design a more humanistic kind of way of getting the animals in the plant, you know, to go in. And one of our, bee piping plants is our neighbor. And so that just, to me, it just was very impressive that, you know, a child like that, it was because of the teachers that believed in her, the parents and the community, and other members that truly inspired her to go on and has done some wonderful things. She, just said that if you believe in the child, don't look at the label, look at what they're able to accomplish. And I thought that was, it just really spoke to me. So with that,
Sarah, you're up.
please come over here and join me.
So So a couple of us from the preschool level attended a session that was actually from a high school down in Georgia on branding and how they were doing that at their school. Branding is kind of putting your name out there in a positive manner to kind of counteract or receive the negative that might come at your school. But they had added another component, a more personal component to theirs. And it wasn't just the Facebook and the Twitter accounts keeping those things updated, but it was also meeting with parents out in the hallways, with students as well, and just kind of getting to know their clientele better. So we kind of took that, and we are doing something similar at Garfield. We are going to, once a month, hand out something that is for the students/parents, just to welcome them to our school, thank them for being part of our school. And so last month we handed out a note that it kind of explained what we were doing, and then we also handed out free apple slices for McDonald's. And then this month, which actually Wednesday, we are handing out pencils that have our name on them. And Mr. Guyman actually has some pencils.
You might tell the funny story that goes along with the
Yeah,
pencils.
so I ordered them, and I ordered them 3 times. The first time, which you're getting one of the first batch, they are missing the R in center. And so I called back and I said, that's not going to work. We can't hand these out to parents. And they said, okay, we'll fix it. And they sent us another box of 600 pencils, also without the R. So now we have 1,200 pencils that say Garfield Early Childhood Center. And then now we also have the correct boxes for Wednesday. So.
Just sharpen them short enough.
Now it's at the end with the erasers. Not what you do.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
You know, the way you said that in encouraging the parents to engage in Garfield, now is for ELF or early childhood, is that an option? Is it an environment where they have some options or choices whether their students come or not?
They do. And we've found that our parents are only there for 1 to 2 years, 3 at the most.
At the most.
And so it's a little bit harder for us to get people engaged, to get our families engaged, because they know that they're going to be moving on soon. And when they move on, they'll be at that school for 4 to 5 years, versus ours where they're only there for a short amount of time.
And half of our staff, it's 1 year. Our kids that are like in Sarah's class, that's 204 kiddos that come for 1 year and then they're gone. And so like building a site council, doing those things where you need to build those relationships with your families, that's a challenge for us. So hopefully this will help. And Sarah's done a good job with a lot of those things too.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I had a toy for my boys that was supposed to say the alphabet, and it stopped at W. So at least you got most of your letters on.
Didn't say the complete
I did also want to say, I wouldn't discount the fact that you only have it for 1 year as sort of not being able to build a relationship, because you're really starting the relationship that those parents are going to have with the school district for the years to come.
And that's our goal with
and
this.
they have a great start there. So I thank you all very much. I think it's really important. You did a good job.
So I teach high school English to trade boys. So my standard of, hey, welcome back to a school year, and their standard is, great, we got to sit through an English class. So I'm also a grad school student, so I tell them I understand the homework load and I understand that they have a lot dealing in their lives. And I talk about technology a lot because that's what my degree is going to be in. So I was really excited to get invited to model schools because of that. And one of my favorite presenters was, his name is Weston Kisnick. I can't even say his name right. And he has a book called Bold Schools. And he's not saying get rid of what you already know works. Just use the technology to help make it modern and make it work better for you. Don't think about, okay, I have an iPad, what am I going to use with it today? It's, no, I have this idea, can I use the iPad to help make it even better? So that was kind of one of my favorite things that I got out of that. It was like, yes, what I do works, Now can I make it better? So like instead of drawing out posters and doing your like interactive 3D, the trifolds that you usually see, you can actually use and do like a 3D trifold model on Glogster and on, what's the other one? Sorry, infographics. You can do like add media to it. So like if the kids created a video, they can actually have the video attached to their media presentation. So it's digital, but it's still doing all of the things that you want them to do, except it's showing off their skills using the technology. So, and then I have the next slide too, sorry. So I created a class website where I upload all of our materials for students, and I've been playing around with some of the different technology. ThingLink was something that I found. You can actually add information to images. So let's say you had an image of an ecosystem, and you had all of these different processes of your ecosystem. You could add links to different websites, different videos about your ecosystem on the picture. And so that kind of allows kids to, like, in my English class I have a hard close read, because that's something that we have them do, is read a document that's difficult, closely chunk information, highlight information. ThingLink allows me to add in, like if they use an acronym and they don't explain what it means, I can add the definition of the acronym on there, and then the kids don't have to like go, what on earth is she talking about? It's right there, which is very useful. And something that I'm going to try with my sophomores is getting them to do their own like video, and it's called Screencast-O-Matic. So they're going to teach sort of like a small lesson that shows somebody how to do something using a video that captures their computer screen. So we're going to try and play with that a little bit. So those are some of the cool technology pieces that I found at model schools.
Okay, so when we were sitting down and talking about the model school conference, we kind of found that all of the things that kind of struck us as being really interesting fell into this idea of mindset and how it impacts how students are learning. And I went to a couple of different sessions that were talking about the brain, and one person really broke it down into 4 things that impact your learning. And when we were talking about the different things we learned, a lot of them fit within those 4 things.
So one thing is, the first thing they talk about in mindset is the attitude, to have that positive learning environment along with flexible seating. What I'm doing with that right now, my students, as 4th graders, I'm not giving them assigned seats. I have various table heights and sittings. Some can sit on the floor, some at regular tables, and it's about them making a good choice of where they're sitting, who they're sitting with, and being able to have that positive experience within the classroom.
And then we also have our kindergarten and 1st grade classrooms at Gertrude Walker that are starting to use some flexible seating. They have some stools and they have some shorter chairs, some wiggle seats that they're using, and it's really cool to see the kids interacting with those things. And then something that really struck me was tying emotion in with your verbal praise when you're talking to a student. And so instead of saying like, awesome job, you did great on that, you say, I'm really proud of you for figuring that out. Or that's really exciting that you were able to see something that I didn't see. And so I've been really trying to do that this year, and I've been also trying to tie it in with correctives as well. So like, it makes me really sad when you talk when I'm talking, and those kind of things, to help kids understand that what they're doing impacts others as well. And then the next category was cognitive capacity, and this isn't just what an individual brain can understand, but what they talked a lot about was developmental readiness, and that we have to make sure that what we're teaching the kids are ready for, and developmentally it matches what they're learning. So that was something that I found really interesting, and something that I feel like we've been talking about a lot in the last couple of years as well. And I can switch to the next slide. Thank you.
And another one that I went to, they talked about the effort that kids and students put into their work, and one thing that was important was the perseverance strategies, is teaching them that just because something's hard doesn't mean that we should just go, oh, I can't do it, I quit. So he showed some different kind of simple activities that you would think would be easy, but then actually practicing them, you're like, no, it's going to take some work. One that he showed us was if you have, so you have your pinky out on one side and your thumb on the other, and then you have to switch. And it's really hard, and he could do it really fast, but it's just kind of simple activity like that, just to kind of show, you know, you have to work to finish things. And one thing he did show to kind of, you know, all students, especially boys, understand sports. So he showed this long clip of all of these sports, races, and other games where people just automatically assumed, I'm almost there, I won. And, you know, they gave up right at the end, so it didn't work out for them.
And then the last area was focus strategies, and this one I find really, really interesting, probably because being a special education teacher, the kids that I work with, sometimes they don't pick up on the strategies when they're presented as a whole, so we really work hard on those individual strategies. And one thing that really struck me was that you have to have clear guidelines, so that means clear steps for kids on how to complete the strategy. And sometimes we think what we say makes sense, but to a kid, they need it broken down a little bit more. And so making sure that we're really breaking down those strategies so the kids know what to do and when to do it. And then the other thing that really struck me with this was that we need to make sure they know how and when to use the strategies, because you think, oh, we're doing an addition strategy, they're going to figure it out. But a lot of times they might not understand that this will work here, but maybe I can't use that strategy when I'm doing multiplication or subtraction. But they think that they can because it's math. And so one thing I've been trying to do with that is when I'm doing word problems, I have a specific strategy step that we go through. And then I also have been talking about different problem types with the math and how we can take, is this type going to fit this situation to solve it in a certain way? So we've been really working on that a lot in my classroom, and I think it's really been helping my students. So I just found the brain information that we learned here was really, really interesting.
And one of the, couple of things, just preservation strategies, you know, you have those students that they look at it the first time and they can't do it. And so what you have to, you think of in terms of, if you play video games, there's challenges throughout the video games. Those kids have to meet those challenges. And the first time that they fail, they don't just give up and say, well, I'm not going to play that game anymore. No, they keep working and working and working. And if we can transfer those types of preservation or perseverance strategies into the classroom, you know, we're going to have rocket scientists building robots that are going to do whatever we want to do. The other thing that I really enjoyed was Temple and her presentation. It was, I was so impressed, and Lauren said, well, you know, there's a movie. You should watch that movie. So I have watched the movie. It's on either Netflix or Amazon. I don't know which one. It is fantastic. I mean, it is so impressive. And what Janie's talking about, the cattle chute system that she developed and built and finally marketed and got somebody to buy into is now used in 75% of the packing houses in the United States now. And so she's pretty impressive, but during her speech, you can see that autism pop out just once in a while, but she was fantastic. And a little short story about her in the Opryland Hotel down there. It's huge. There's, you know, 2,888 rooms. It's a huge place. And she had gone in the afternoon with Dr. Daggett and his wife and another couple. And anyway, they agreed to meet for dinner at 6 o'clock. And so they parted ways about 4 o'clock. When they showed up for dinner, or at the restaurant, met at the restaurant, she still had on the same clothes because that was kind of the idea. We're going to go and change, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, he asked her, was there a problem? She said, I couldn't find my room. And she had wandered around for 2 hours in the Opryland Hotel because she couldn't find her room, and finally, you know, but again, that's that side of her life. The other side of her life is she's a renowned author, developer of 75% of the loading systems in the packing houses. I mean, she's a very intelligent woman. It's just there are some things that she has challenges meeting. And you know what both of these ladies have said, and part of what I got out of that conference was some of the shared leadership types of things that should be developed in successful schools. And that's part of what we try to do as well. That's why they did most of this. And, you know, they're very impressive. And I was glad to go with them. So that's enough from us. Somebody else? We don't have pencils, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. What?
I do have a question about strategies. And maybe this is just on a personal note, so you may not, I'm maybe putting you on the spot, and you can get back to me if you recall something. But sometimes I wonder, do we offer students or young people too many strategies instead of letting them create or come up with strategies? Is there anything about that?
I think that goes back to when and how to apply the strategies. You provide those strategies for that specific area, and then also along with that is the teaching of when to use it and when not to. And you do limit it, and I'll let Lauren talk a little more.
Yeah, I think sometimes some kids can get overwhelmed with all of the strategies, and I find that with my students a lot. They have all of these different strategies to add, and they get them mixed up. And for example, I have a student right now who she was trying to use a strategy that uses doubles when she was multiplying by 3. That's not going to work because 3 is not a double. And so I'm really working with her to look at the strategy and to decide, is this going to be effective in that situation? And if not, save it for another time. And so I agree, sometimes we do overwhelm students with a lot of different strategies, and that's one of the things that it's just important that we acknowledge that and we help them to figure out what strategies they can apply where.
I want to chime in on the strategies because Phil said shared leadership. I don't have a slide because I'm presenting to the SAC meeting on Wednesday, and my big thing was Sue Sakowicz and principles for principles. So when we talk about, you know, the myriad of strategies that you could say, oh, I'm going to do this with my teachers, and I want this in my building, and I want this in my building. I basically put my staff out there, and I created questions. I modeled it exactly off of what Dr. Sakowicz did, and just, it was amazingly successful. And I'm going to present that to the principals, to the administrators, of what we did and how I was able to engage my staff. And she talks a lot about the naysayers and those that don't want to do, and so it really was very successful when I chose. It's amazingly simple. It's called the Knowledge Cafe, and I'll present that on Wednesday to the administrators. But it was just by breaking it way down and then empowering them to solve the problem, ask the question, discuss the question, and I just sat back and smiled and thought, God, I got my staff to participate. I'm like so proud. But it was such a, you know, the way Renee put it was, it's such a big conference. Don't try to grab pieces of everything. Don't try to do all these things. Choose one good strategy that you like and go after that. And that's kind of what I did. So that helps a little bit to, you know, let them find it.
We're done, Garfield Walker. You're not done. You're done.
Okay, we just, Christine and I said we would each pick kind of one speaker that stood out to us that we took away a lot from. I did the Inspire, Motivate, Engage session by Jacob Clifford, or Gifford, sorry. One of the things he talked about was the importance of emphasizing the big picture skills when the students understand why they're doing what they're doing, how it fits in the big picture of their life. They're more involved in that, they're more invested in being successful. He talked about the importance of quick feedback, being able to structure your classroom so that they have feedback as quickly as possible. They're not hearing about it 2 weeks later, by which time they've forgotten what they even did to get there. Developing traditions, creating that culture in your classroom so they feel they belong, they're invested there, they know things that a stranger coming into the classroom wouldn't necessarily know. He also talked about giving them a list of questions to discuss and then calling on them, which we've known for a while, not just cold calling and, you know, here's the question and I'm calling on them, letting them discuss it with a partner, letting them discuss their ideas with each other to flesh out their thoughts, and then allowing them an opportunity to share. those are some of the things that stood out to me at that stage.
And then I chose Bold School, which I didn't realize that you were already sharing about it, but I actually purchased the book later after I got home, thought it might be cheaper. But what I liked most about this is I think being a little bit older of an educator, I still like to stick with some of my instructional strategies that I'm comfortable with that don't necessarily include technology. And sometimes I feel like, man, there's so much technology in every classroom that I'm glad when the kids get to mine that we don't have any of that. They can put the devices away and it's just us interacting with each other. And so for me to listen to Wes talk about Bold School, it validated some of the things that I'm doing and I see other people already doing. And so I liked how Bold School is really just that blended learning. Taking what we do know that works, that may not have anything to do with technology, and keeping that. Don't throw it away just because something new has come about. And so take what you know works, and research has proven it, student achievement has proven it, and then add some technology to it, enhance it. Don't let technology overtake it. So the blended learning, the book, they're coming out with a study guide, and I've already talked to Mr. Stoppel to see if I can possibly do a book study with people that are interested in it. And it's actually a way to, if there's somebody who's kind of afraid of technology, it's a good way to, hey, you can get your foot wet with these. He gives you a great list of resources and how to do it. And actually, he was a very charismatic speaker, and he's from Colorado, but he did a Kahoot, which is something, it's an app, and we do it a lot in our building for review, but he showed us how we could use it as direct instruction. So the teacher's really leading everything, and that app is just enhancing it and getting 100% engagement by everybody. So it was really pretty cool. And the last part of this, it's a quote from the book. It says, "Technology is awesome, teachers are better." So don't forget the personal part of teaching. Don't forget why we have teachers and why we're there. And I thought tonight at the ELA, we were at the ELA adoption meeting, and they're like, we can't find any new research about new technology and what's new, what else can we do? Well, we already know what works, and let's stick with those traditions. And basically it said, Hattie and his research said, it's your teachers and the best practice is what's going to make a difference with kids. So I felt very validated at model schools and then coming back from model schools and sharing it in ELA that, hey, we're doing it right. So it's a good thing.
Can I tag on something that you said this evening? When I was at the KSB meeting a month or two ago, Dr. Watson's like, there are only two fields that are probably not going to be replaced by robots in the next 20 years. Medical and thinking. All of you. Because you guys cannot be replaced by technology. We'll help you with technology, but you can't be replaced with it.
Science. Fun part. Okay. So I teach chemistry at the high school. I'm also science department head. When I went along to model schools, there's always the, ooh yeah, I get to go to a conference, right? And there's this, will I go to sessions that are, just going to be the same thing that I know already, or will I actually go to ones that, I can find and work with? So we had a lot of options at model schools, which was great, hundreds of sessions to choose from. And so there were really two that had an impact on me. They're up here. I am working through K-State in the cohort in my leadership masters. So one of the sessions that stood out to me was one on culture. It was a fella who actually worked with Hank and John Green on the Crash Course videos, and he presented how the culture in your classroom actually affects how your teaching goes. Without that initial just setup, it's not going to work. So what I did was I took that and I brought it to my science department. So not only was I bringing it to my classroom, I was also trying to influence others at the building. Last year, we actually, during one of our in-services, we came up with a list of things that my high school teachers wanted to have their students know when they left their classroom. And the list is up here on this little deal. I split it up into 3 ones, just general science, lab science, and the socially relevant science, global warming and whatnot, right? The issues that are in hand, and being able to argue in a rational mind. So what I did was I took some resources from Sherry St. Clair, who had a great presentation on NGSS, gave half a dozen to a dozen actual specific sites and websites that we could go to and use in the classroom, be it science literature that we could break down into reading level, scientific exploring apps or different flashes or video that you could slow down and use in physics. And we actually went through and I did a presentation for them on one of our half-day in-services, just sharing that with them and allowing them, hey, go to this website, let's start talking and brainstorming and bouncing ideas off of each other. Because in science, we're biology, we're physics, we're chemistry, and there's so many ideas in the one room, it's getting it down and boiling it down to one. And one of the challenges I gave them was to take these ideas that we have from last year and to use one of those resources to improve one of these and to share it with the others in the department. And so we're working on that this year. And then,
I'm sorry, what is
yeah.
NGSS?
That's the next generation science standards. It's our science. It's basically the Common Core for science.
Okay, thank you.
So each one of the NGSS standards is connected to several writing or math standards. So it came in the year after Common Core, and it's what we use mainly in science, and involves some science practices along with it and whatnot. So after using this with my high school department and having a master's project to do, we will be spreading it K12 during our half-in services. Starting in December, I believe it is. Leanne, remind me if you said November, because I'll have to prep earlier. Okay, good. So it is December. We'll start with K4, possibly K6, because we do have that option of working with inner buildings. And we'll see where it goes. So I'll be sharing those resources that I did with the high schoolers, because they are K12, they can be used regardless. And a lot of our science staff is newer, and so we will be reviewing NGSS as well in those. But the key is resources. And then for me in my classroom, the number one thing that I took out of there was a Google presentation that I went to. And if you'll excuse me, we're going to do some science here. Is that okay? I actually have a set of Google VR cardboard glasses. Okay, so you may have seen kids of your own or kids throughout buildings just have these out, and it looks like they're goofing around and playing games. But there's some actual educational value to this thing. So I just set this lab up, actually, built it myself. So in the Google presentation, they take us through this whole thing, and they show us all the cool stuff, and they're like, hey, you could have it at your building for $9 grand. And me being the cheapskate that I am, I went, well, we're going to find out how to do this for cheaper. So the plan is to utilize the MyFis through the tech department. I've already signed some out. My high school students, for the most part, already have one of these, or enough to pair with somebody who does. And we'll use the MyFis to get the certain programs that we need. And in chemistry especially, one of the major things we do is we look at molecules. So I'm actually going to select the cardboard viewing here, and you can kind of see on my screen it splits it up into two, because there's one glass for each eye. Okay, and I'm going to kind of hand this to you, and I just got to make sure that your hands are on the side, because it's my phone. Don't drop my phone. Okay, all right, and this is what you're going to look like. Like, you're not going to see anybody, but you'll be able to look around, up, down, left, right, and you'll be able to actually get a closer look at the molecules. So you want to try these little glasses. You guys can kind of hand it around. You can look left and right, and you can actually see the structure of this molecule. So we're going to use this in my AP chemistry class as part of an investigation lab to look at the actual bends that molecules are, because we write them on paper all the time, but they're not two-dimensional, and it has to go a lot with the content that we're doing. And so it's one of those, I think one of those cardboards is it's less than $20 each, and if this works, we'll start investing a little bit more into a class set, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I noticed
Oh, I can definitely look locally too as well. Just the big key is going to be, for me, I'm trying it first before like I really spread it. So.
It's really the connection to the app.
Right.
That shows the.
Yeah, and the MiFi's, well, no, it's actually downloaded onto my phone, so I can look at this wherever I want. I get the MiFi because I don't want to have to make a bunch of kids download off of their own data and whatnot. And it's a way to get around buying 30 devices and a Wi-Fi router for $9,000, which is all they had. So, you know, I'm using my cleverness to figure it out, and we'll see how it works.
So there's a lot of applications for that, obviously.
Yes, through Google, there's some free Google expeditions where, as a teacher, a science teacher, I can actually take them through a tour of, say, the Kennedy Space Center, right? And the kids all have their glasses, and we're all connected to the same Wi-Fi, which for us, it makes it a little tough. With the MiFi, you only have like 5 devices you can connect to at once. So still working on that, on how that would exactly work. But the kids can actually like have one of these on, and they can look around Kennedy Space Center as you take them on a tour of Kennedy Space Center. So you can like highlight objects and say, hey, look up here, right? But inevitably, in a science classroom, what are kids going to do? They're going to ask questions. And through Google's research, they actually see that kids will ask more questions about the side items than if you just show it on a PowerPoint. You know, you show it on a PowerPoint, that's a single vision. But when you have 30 kids all able to look around and say, hey, I see that hose there. It's connected there. What's up with that? And it just breeds inquiry. Would be the word we could use in science.
The synergy of the science class there.
And they have some very excellent historical tours as well through Google Expeditions. But the wealth of VR apps that were also out there, along not just Google, and it just sent me on this research frenzy, I would say.
He's in my academy.
Thanks, Zane. I don't belong to be there. I don't belong
And so
there.
Kelly was. Those are my